Welcome, everyone. This is Anissa Avon with Turnkey Coaching and Development Solutions. I want to say thank you so much to our sponsor today, the Whitmarsh Consulting Group. David Whitmarsh and his team are incredibly qualified at increasing an organization's digital footprint, so to speak. So all things related to marketing and lead generation, et cetera. And I want to say thank you to them. You can always reach the Whitmarsh Consulting Group at wcg-bp.com. Today we're going to talk about the neuroscience of success, how to master your mindset and enhance your capacity as a leader. So today I'm super excited to have one of our executive coaches and trainers that works with Turnkey. Michele is, wait till you hear this specific specialty. It's called, she is a rapid transformational coach and rapid rewire expert. She works with executives and entrepreneurs bringing over 25 years of experience, intuitive insights, and strategic business savvy to your success. Her unique inside-out approach is a culmination of years of study in the realms of emotional intelligence and neuroscience and organizational psychology and rapid transformational therapy to help catalyze shifts in your thinking and eliminate mental and emotional blocks and rapidly rewire your brain for greater confidence and higher performing teams. So Michele is a nationally recognized speaker. She's a certified executive coach. She is a rapid transformational hypnotherapist, and she's going to tell us a little bit more about all of that. She's a consultant, a trainer, and a writer. She is the co-author of a new best-selling book called Breakthrough Healing as well. She has provided coaching, training, and organizational development and hypnotherapy globally to individuals and entire organizations in a variety of industries and in both the public and the private sector. So shortly at the end of our presentation, she's also going to be providing us a gift today. She's going to be sharing with us her latest ebook. It's called Saying No with Grace and Grit, which of course it also includes a guided relaxation MP3 recording. So I'm super excited about that. That's very generous of Michele. And I know a lot of us could use development in the arena of saying no with grace and grit. So I'm super excited about that. So Michele, I'd love to just turn this over to you. I know we've got a lot to cover today. So what did I miss? Tell us a little bit about you and how this conversation around neuroscience really became part of your passion and part of your work.
Well, thank you, Miss Anissa. I so appreciate being here with you and the lovely introduction. Yeah, I have been a certified executive coach now for over 16 years, and I've constantly been in search of learning and growth and self-improvement, not only for myself, but for my clients and the teams that I get to work with. So you might say I'm a bit of a learning junkie and science geek, all kind of rolled up into one. And so through my studies and my travels, I've really gotten into the neuroscience of coaching and how our brains work and how we can be top performers in our lives, both personally and professionally. And so I essentially take an inside-out approach to success, tackling both the subconscious and the conscious mind to help enhance your capacity as a leader, to increase your confidence so you can lead with clarity and purpose. I'm super passionate about this work. I've been at it a long time, and I just love bringing it to folks. So the work that I do, rapid transformational coaching, is a really unique fusion of my years of coaching experience with rapid transformational therapy, or RTT, which is a methodology that was pioneered by an amazing woman, Marissa Peer. She's a world-renowned therapist and speaker and teacher. And essentially, it combines the most beneficial principles of neurolinguistic programming, cognitive behavioral therapy, hypnotherapy, all of which helps you get, excuse me, at the heart of the subconscious issues that are causing you blocks, whether those are physical, mental, emotional, and helps you eliminate them really quickly. It's really actually quite astounding. So I've combined that with my coaching in a way that helps you address both the internal and the external aspects of your success, right? So when we move the internal mind blocks out of the way, then you can more clearly, more easily, more effectively put strategies and goals for success into place and actually get into action around them, right? Instead of spinning in circles, which can happen to any of us on a myriad of topics, right? So all of this really is about enhancing your abilities, right? Getting out of your own way so that you can be the person, the leader that you know you can be, that you want to be, and inspire your teams to be high-performing teams, communicate effectively, and collaborate effectively, all of which, of course, creates amazing bottom-line results. So you might be wondering, you know, this sounds great for me personally, but how does this impact or apply to my teams, right? Well, most North American employers have analyzed their ROI on their wellness programs, and they found that a $1 to $3 decreases in their overall healthcare costs for every dollar spent on wellness programs. So that's really important to understand, because essentially wellness starts with your brain, right? So mastering your mindset for greater wellness, improved communications, productivity, and job satisfaction. All of these are key ingredients or elements to increased employee engagement. And that's what I know you all are here to find out about. How do you increase your employee engagement? How do you create happy employees that do what they love and love what they do, right? So let's have a look at our agenda for today of what we're going to be talking about, all right? So first, we're going to look at the inner and the outer game of leadership. That's the fears, the beliefs, the limiting beliefs that we might be carrying around as leaders. So it might be a fear of success, a fear of failure, a fear of rejection, or even feeling like a fraud. So we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Then we're going to look at what are some of the confidence killers, some of the issues that you most frequently see in your teams that get in the way of their success, that get in the way of their productivity. And imagine, what would your team look like if those were moved out of the way, right? Next, we'll then look at how you are hardwired for safety. I'm going to introduce you to my friend Amy. I think you'll love her once you figure out how to manage her. And then we'll move on to the principles of the mind. These are principles that you really need to understand so you can take back control of your mind instead of letting your fears run you. And then by the end of the call, I'm going to take you through a really relaxing, about a 6 to 8 minute, I call it the transformation, and it's a way to sit back and relax and get grounded and help you move through your day more effectively and more confidently. And then at the end, we'll have some Q&A. So that's kind of where we're going in a nutshell. And so we're gonna dive right in. Okay?
Sounds like a great plan. Thank you, Michele.
Sure.
All right, we'd like to just get a little bit of take a pulse here of you folks that have joined us today about what piqued your interest. So I'm going to launch a poll, and we'd love to hear from you. Let's see, where is my poll? It just disappeared. All right, let's try that again. No, it did. We've been having some technical challenges today, and one of which is a missing, there's my pollster. Oh, yes, somebody just opened it for us. Thank you. All right, so what piqued your interest in the webinar topic, the neuroscience of success? So is it that you're curious but don't have maybe a specific objective, or is your goal to learn how to positively utilize it for your workforce or your team development? Are you here because you're interested in perhaps your personal or professional development? And then, of course, several folks are already chiming in and saying, it's both. I'm curious And I don't necessarily have a specific objective, but I would also like, let's see, there we go. Thank you for showing it, that they would like to learn how to positively utilize it for workforce development. So isn't this interesting? So most of us here want to learn how to expand our personal and professional development, but also some folks that are really just curious about neuroscience, and then, of course, folks who want to utilize it. How can this brain science, which oftentimes, Michele, is associated with things like meditation or positive thinking, and many of those topics that I know you're going to address today, don't necessarily have an easy introduction into the workforce or into learning and development programs. So I'm interested to see how you've discovered organizations are open to this, related to how our well-being or our emotions impact our performance, and how organizations can take that data and introduce it in a way that's acceptable in their organization.
Yes, well, that is exactly where we're going to today. So thanks everyone for responding to the poll. That's really fascinating. I love polls. I'm really a science geek at heart. So as we move more into the science here, let's move to our next slide. Come on, hello. There we go. All right, so just to give you a little bit of the background of what's behind this work that I'll be talking about today, there's a fascinating new branch of science called the epigenetics, excuse me. And epigenetics is the study of heritable changes in gene expression, active versus inactive genes that do not involve changes to the underlying DNA sequence. Essentially, it's a change in the phenotype without a change to the genotype, right? So all of that said, essentially is these biological mechanisms essentially switch on and off your gene expression, how they operate, how your body essentially responds to the environment around you. In other words, epigenetics controls your genes. Certain circumstances in your life can cause genes to be silenced or expressed over time, turned off or turned on. So for example, listening to classical music actually has an epigenetic effect on your brain. And playing an instrument has an even bigger, more positive effect on your brain. So everything affects your epigenetics, from the food you eat, to the amount of sleep you get, to the exercise you get or don't get, your social environment, the lifestyle you lead, even the beliefs that you hold about yourself, all have an impact on how your cells function and how your genes are expressed. So if we bring all of that back to where you are at work, right, the environment in which you operate, it literally has an impact on your physical body and brain, either positively or negatively. So just kind of let that sink in for a minute, right? The world that you swim in, literally, your work world, your colleagues, the positive, the negative, all of that has a physical impact on your body, all the way down to a cellular level, all the way down to the 15 trillion cells that are swimming around in your body, okay? So, excuse me, let's take that one step further now. And let's look at the inner and the outer game of leadership. So what are the different mindsets that are getting in your way as leaders, right? There's that, the inner game, the subconscious beliefs that you may or may not be aware of, the conscious beliefs that you are aware of, and all of this drives your outer game of managing your team, of collaborating with your colleagues, working with clients. And we all, I hate to tell you, we all have them in different ways, shapes, and forms. We all have blind spots, this fear of success, fear of failure, fear of rejection, feeling like a fraud, is a very popular one, right? All of these get in your way and prevent you from operating clearly and successfully and concisely all of the time in that zone. I call it your genius zone, where you're firing on all cylinders and cooking with gas, right? Well, how can we operate there more of the time? So leaders like Sheryl Sandberg or internationally known journalists Katty Kay and Claire Shipman, they have shared extensive research and findings from hundreds of interviews from leaders from around the globe, that these fears like fear of being a fraud or fear of being found out, like I shouldn't be where I am, I don't know enough, or how did I get here? All of these are unfortunately very common, even at the highest levels of government and business. So in their book, The Confidence Code, Katty Kay and Claire Shipman found that success correlates more closely with confidence than it does with competence. Yes, there's actually evidence that confidence is more important than your ability when it comes to getting ahead, right? So as a leader, your confidence is key to your success and to your team as well, right? You see, while competence is your learned expertise and action, confidence is the purity of action produced by a mind free of doubt. Now, unfortunately, there is a propensity of leaders and employees alike who dwell on failure and mistakes, who have an inability to shut down self-criticism, which can be a huge psychological impediment to success, affecting both your confidence and your sense of competence, individually and as a team. So let me give you a quick example. In my former life, I was a creative director at a hot startup here in the San Francisco Bay Area, and I had been moved across the country to take on this job, and I had sold myself brilliantly, and I was so excited, and I got there and I was like, oh my gosh, what have I gotten myself into? Can I do this? I don't know. And I created this whole series of limiting beliefs and fears and conversations in my mind that ended up creating a self-fulfilling prophecy, essentially. And my fears got the better of me. And then I add on top of that, I was bullied essentially by some of my colleagues, and I ended up losing my job. And it was the most devastating thing I'd ever been through, and it shattered my confidence. And it was, though, a blessing in disguise, because it actually led me to coaching and finding my life's work. So that's why I'm so passionate about this topic, about helping people find their confidence and be better leaders, because I know how detrimental it can be personally, right? So here's another quick question for you. How often does a lack of confidence negatively impact your personal well-being? So we can
this is a really good question.
Yes.
And I just launched the poll. We'd like to hear from you guys. While we have folks that are taking that, something that I find really interesting is the conversation that you're having. It's not isolated. Even the Wharton School of Business has a program specifically around brain science within its business MBA course. They have a program called Leveraging Neuroscience for Business Impact. And so what are you discovering in your work? How are organizations, like when you talk about fear of success or fear of failure, it is rare that dialogue happens in any type of a leadership development or employee development program. It's a bit taboo. So how are organizations, and you can answer this later if this is not the right time, but are you finding they're opening to this dialogue because it has a greater propensity for success or for meaningful development?
Well, there is greater success when you bring it into the conversation, and it's how you bring it into the conversation that makes all of the difference, right? Because no one at work wants to show their soft underbelly of, I'm not really confident, I'm afraid no one, people are going to see I don't know what I'm doing, right? So we come at it through a different lens of helping folks understand each other's strengths more effectively and build up those strengths so that they see the confidence in each other through that lens. They find new ways to relate to their colleagues, and that builds confidence. So there's an underlying conversation around the confidence, but we don't come at it from that directly, that head on, because it can be a little intimidating. I'm pretty direct, but I know where to soft pedal things so that people are like, oh, okay, let me try that idea on first before you hit me over the head with it, right?
Yes, very good.
Exactly.
Well, that was very helpful. So isn't it interesting? So of the folks we have on the call, and some folks, about 20%, are saying, you know what, I have negative thoughts and confidence all the time. And I think that that's probably the majority of our world. We have some kind of conversation on our head that says, I'm not good enough. How am I going to do this? I have so many failures. And between the 20% of all the time and the 25% of often, that's nearly 50% of us. I think it's also interesting that about 56% say only sometimes. In regards to when we're doing these webinars, we're often inviting folks who are neck deep in personal and professional development themselves. They're pretty typically self-aware and know that, hey, I do have these thoughts all the time, for example, is kind of a big deal just to have that kind of awareness.
Yeah. And that's what emotional intelligence is really all about, helping you get greater clarity around what your own inner conversations are, how they're getting in your way, and then how you can tune into what's going on over there for other people. Because if you're not self-aware, it's hard to be aware of what's going on with other people. Right? So that's why emotional intelligence is such a powerful tool in corporate America today. It's actually, they've shown that the higher your emotional intelligence is, the higher your levels of success can be. Again, it comes back to emotional intelligence is more valuable than actual, the levels of expertise. They go hand in hand, but the higher your emotional intelligence, the more successful it's proven you'll become, which I find fascinating. So, so great. So let's move on. Let's see here. Come on, switch slides.
Cooperate.
There we go.
There it goes.
Being fussy today. All right. So now let's talk about some of these confidence killers. What are some of the common challenges that you see in your organization, you see in your employees? Go ahead, and if you have some thoughts, go ahead and type them into the chat box. We'd love to know. But some typical common theme songs, as I like to call them, that come up that really get in the way of people's confidence is perfectionism. I have to get it perfect or else I can't do it. Or we end up spinning around in circles and stressing ourselves out trying to get it, quote, perfect. But in reality, there's nothing that is, quote, perfect. Another challenge for employees often is a boss that micromanages them, overseeing them, peering over their shoulder, make it green, make it blue, no, bigger, make it smaller, whatever it happens to be. As a creative director, I used to get that from the designers I work with, and I tried to be really mindful not to do that with folks, because it impacts their creativity, it impacts their flow of thought, which can then lead, if you're overly micromanaged, it can lead to disengagement at work. Or disengagement can be created also by your skills and talents not really well aligned with your job. If you're doing one job that requires lots of organizational skills and lots of detailed work, but you're really a big picture thinker and creative person, it's not going to be a very good match. And ultimately, the person is going to leave. So making sure that your team is aligned really with the jobs that they're doing, and that everyone on the team is operating from their sweet spot, that's when you get really great collaboration and high productivity in teams. Another popular thing is fear of failure. people don't like to talk about this. It's one of those taboo things you mentioned, Anissa, but
Yeah.
it's, if I don't get it right, what will happen? And people's minds will spin down the rabbit hole into the worst case scenario. I'll end up poverty stricken and on the street and homeless, right? But when we allow our conscious mind to go, oh no, that's really not going to happen, we won't let that happen. But our subconscious can be really powerful. Some other popular confidence killers are, those negative Nellies and critical Craigs on your team. They're always the one that got their arms crossed and looking down their noses and poo-pooing the ideas that are coming across because maybe it's not their idea, or maybe it just intimidates them. There's all sorts of reasons that people show up that way. And then lastly, in the summertime when you get those little tiny gnats, Anissa, especially in the South,
Yes.
and they fly around your face and you can't get rid of them, those are gnats. We also call them negative automatic thoughts. And they hover around and they get up all in your face and you can't get rid of them. Yeah, those are the limiting thoughts that keep going, like, what if I can't get it done, or I shouldn't have done it that way, or what if something goes wrong, or I'm not capable, or do I have the right skills, and on and on and on and on. You guys know what I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely, and we've got a couple of folks who have typed in. What's interesting is when most of us think of confidence, and this is a comment from someone on the call, is, in confidence, we oftentimes think of our personal insecurities, but there's so much more to it, and that's what you're revealing. Daniel wrote, overextension. I'm involved in so many projects, I don't know where to begin, and that
Right.
can certainly... And this is a theme for Barbara. Seems like businesses are trying to do more with fewer staff. Overwhelm and the sense of failure that goes with not being able to keep up is very hard on team members.
Yes, that's Barbara. Thank you. That's a very great point. Do more with less people, except the people who are doing the more are like, no, I already have my full plate. Quit it.
Yeah.
And so, helping your teams manage not only the external workload, but the impact that has internally, emotionally on them. Because if you're not bolstering your team, then it can create a really negative impact and ripple effect, and that's hard to overcome sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole thing about, disengagement, and there's so many contributors, as we've learned through the Gallup surveys, for example, on what's causing disengagement. But Joanne wrote, non-aligned work activity, unclear objectives. I find in the work that we do with clients, it is completely not completely, often dismissed that it's critical that every employee in the organization understands how their contribution impacts the greater good or the strategic goals. And when a manager is unable or doesn't take care to make sure that the team understands what are the activities and how does this align with the greater goal and what are the objectives of these activities, people begin to really feel like what they do doesn't matter, and disengagement is something that many employees just tolerate as part of their job, when in fact, if they were engaged, they could become more confident and contribute so much more.
Yeah, disengagement numbers can be really high too, depending on the industry vertical, and that's a huge cost. If you've got 20% of your workforce that's only working at 50% of productivity, well, that can be very, very costly. And so taking the time to create programs for your teams that help them understand what their impact is, how their contribution matters, and how that aligns both personally with their values and the organizational values and the good works that organization is doing in the world, that can make a huge difference in creating that intrinsic motivation that pulls people forward. Because money is really like second or third down on the list of motivators. Feeling important, not important, but feeling recognized and appreciated for your
Yes.
contributions is actually the number one thing that people look for in their work, right?
Yeah.
So you might ask, well, why is confidence so important? And it comes back to what we've been talking about. It's really important because it helps increase engagement. It helps when someone feels confident, they're willing to take measured risks. And when you counterweigh that with collaboration, it leads to better team performance and bottom line results, right? So when you think about it, who would you rather follow? Someone who exudes confidence and encourages collaboration and invites conversation so that you feel you can have a dialogue with your boss and actually feel seen and heard? Or do you want to follow someone who keeps micromanaging you and second guessing you a lot of the time, and worse, takes the credit for the good work that you're doing, right? So it's about training your leaders to stand confidently in their expertise, but also enhancing their emotional intelligence, so that creates a positive effect and ripple out into their team, because teams will follow your lead. There's a lot of people out there in the workforce who are great doers, and they haven't stepped into their leadership's shoes yet. So as a leader in an organization, it's your job to help show them the way.
Well, I think that makes a really strong case regarding behavior change. Most of us as leaders, when we're really effective, we understand that part of our work is to foster improved performance, which typically is going to mean some type of behavior change. And behavior change is a choice. Behavior change, our employees can improve and choose to increase their level of competency and change some of their behaviors when they're engaged. And so I'm reflecting on what you've shared, Michele, in that there's a thread. We're talking about the brain, we're talking about levels of confidence, and the truth is that as a leader, we will only be as effective as our team is engaged. And as we support them in understanding and improving their confidence, we support them in engaging more fully, and thus we get more work done more effectively through others.
Absolutely. We can't do it alone. We really, really can't. So back to some of the fun science here. Sorry, I'm a nerd.
Love it.
So let me tell you about how you're hardwired for safety. And let me introduce you to my friend Amy. Amy is your amygdala. It's a part of your limbic brain, it's your old reptilian brain, and it's really your fight or flight or freeze mechanism. And Amy's job is merely to keep you safe. That's the only reason why she's there. Now, you might recognize her. She has many different names: the inner critic, the committee, the angel, the devil on your shoulder. She comes in many disguises, right? And because she's hardwired, you're not going to get rid of her. So you have to learn how to manage her, to redirect her from keeping you small and stuck inside your comfort zone, which can get really uncomfortable after a while, and helping you to expand, to be more of who you are naturally, right? Now, this is essentially your subconscious mind at work, right? So here's what you need to know about your subconscious mind. It works simply by accepting information as fact. It doesn't analyze or try to interpret information that comes in, but it acts like a super backup drive, if you will, in the cloud. And it doesn't think or reason independently. It just merely obeys the commands it receives from your conscious mind, right? So your conscious mind is the part of your brain that is your active, waking, thinking part of your mind. It analyzes information. It discards what it does and doesn't want to keep, and passes the rest on to your subconscious mind. So your brain is always listening, and your subconscious is always listening, and it remembers everything. It catalogs everything that's ever happened to you. But your conscious mind is kind of the filter, so you're not bombarded with millions of memories. That would be overwhelming, right? So think of it as your conscious mind is the gardener, and that plants the seeds, and your subconscious mind is the fertile soil in which the seeds germinate and grow. So all of the events in your life, your subconscious conveniently remembers. So all of the seeds you've ever planted are neatly there. Some are growing, some are just dormant. And so if somewhere along your life path you have planted seeds of self-doubt, lack of confidence, because you learned, say, to not speak out or stand up for yourself, or to act confidently for fear of some kind of negative outcome, then all of that is stored in your subconscious. And that's what drives Amy to keep you safe. Because when anything remotely like that particular memory shows up in your current moment, Amy will fiercely protect you and divert your attention elsewhere to keep you safe inside of your comfort zone. Now, the tricky part here is all of this is going on in the background, like the background programming of your OS system on your computer, right? Which is why people can so easily be derailed when some random trigger point gets pushed, and next thing you know, emotions are flaring, communications break down, stalemates occur, and it disrupts the flow of the team, of the project, and can become a really hot mess sometimes, right, Anissa?
Well, and absolutely, you know, it's so interesting to hear that this is how, in layman's terms, we're hardwired. Change and change management is a multi-million / billion-dollar industry, and I find it interesting that we go about change and pushing change in ways that are often rarely effective. And what you're sharing with us regarding neuroscience, it's partly because we don't want to change. It's unsafe to change.
Yes.
Uh-huh.
Yes, and that's a great point, because it's scary to change. It's like, you know, when you come up against the edges of your comfort zone, your whole body starts to go, oh, hold on a minute there, girl, I don't know about that. You sure you want to go out? You want to go past that line? And so a big part of the work that we do is helping you learn how to feel comfortable in with your own skills and abilities and talents, so that it feels safe to stretch and to grow, right? And then achieve higher and higher levels of success and productivity, and you know, it goes out in all directions, right? So the thing here is, at the heart of change management is really mindfulness. It's about tuning in and letting go of the stories that are disempowering to you, that no longer serve you, and taking on new empowering beliefs that do serve you. You see, because at some point in your life, those limiting beliefs probably did serve you, but now as a conscious adult, you are free to change your mind, people. That's the exciting thing. You get to reprogram your mind, instruct your mind, direct your mind to adopt new empowering beliefs and habits. So what does this look like? Well, we got another question for you, and then we'll go into what that looks like and how that works. All right?
Absolutely. So I'm launching that now. If you had to guess, what limiting beliefs negatively impact the productivity and effectiveness of your team or employees? You know, I find it really hard to have this conversation about how to use this science and the neuroscience of success and neuroscience of achievement to impact our team without the dialogue of how to use it to impact us. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, because companies aren't brick and mortar. They're made of people, right? And every team is made of people, and every person has a brain and has emotions and has talents and gifts to share. And it's about helping each person recognize and step fully into their own talents and abilities, and helping those around them see those and call them out more, so that A, change isn't scary, and B, collaboration then becomes exciting and fun, because you know that the people around you understand you, have got your back, and you're all in it together. You create that sense of contribution and meaning in your work, again, which comes back to that intrinsic motivation that creates greater engagement.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Daniel, thanks for writing in. He wrote, mindlessness, the mind's follies are the issue.
Yes,
I think that's fair.
I like that.
So isn't this interesting when we look at what we as leaders feel that our team suffers from? It's very similar to our own personal struggles, lack of confidence, feeling like a fraud, fear of failure, perfectionism, other. So how does this science of what we are learning with you, how does a person use that to impact their team?
Sure. Well, let's keep going here because I've
Okay,
got good
good. I
stuff
figured
for
you were going to
you.
answer that.
Yes. Let's see if I can get my screen. There we go. All right. So there's some good news and there's some bad news here, folks. So we'll start with the bad news, right? That the bad news is confidence is hardwired into your DNA. And some of us have more than others, right? So how do you move from a state of apathy to optimism, from anger to enthusiasm, from Lone Ranger to collaborator? Well, the good news is that you have the capacity to change your mind. That's what epigenetics is all about. That's what it was telling us, right? We talked about it at the beginning, that your environment can impact how your brain works. And we know now from the science around neuroplasticity that your brain is not fixed. You're constantly learning, and you have the ability to constantly change your mind, to expand your mind. Another well-known scientist, Dr. Bruce Lipton, he's a cell biologist, and through his work, we realized that, again, our environment impacts everything at a cellular level about what is how your cells react and respond to what you're surrounded by. So if you have a negative environment that's really stressful, it has a physical, mental, emotional impact on your body. And conversely, the same is true, right? If you're in a positive environment, even if you're telling yourself positive beliefs, that can have a positive impact on your body. So, and how your body responds to what's going on, and thus how you interact with those around you. So the
Michelle,
really,
on that note, I mean, I
yeah.
actually read a research study where they took individuals who were in love and those
Mm-hmm.
who were not, and the brain scans of those folks who were actively in love showed an entirely different level of brain activity, and we'll just call it the machines lit up. And so what you're saying is why neuroscience is having an influence on the practicality of fostering a positive engagement is that we end up as humans needing that positivity or needing those feelings of passions or requiring a positive environment to be more engaged.
Yes, absolutely. And so the cool thing is, and this is essentially what I help people do, is you can rewire your own brain. There's a way to overcome old beliefs, old habits, even in some cases physical ailments that you've been plagued with your whole life. You can change your mind about them and change your physicality. It's mind blowing, right? Because what's happening is you're moving your brain action from the amygdala, from Amy, the fear response, and bringing it back to the prefrontal cortex where logic and reasoning is happening. So all of this tells us that we each have the power to create an environment in which we thrive mentally, emotionally, physically. And it starts at an individual level, and it can positively impact your whole team. So these principles that I'm going to share with you in a moment will help deepen your own self-awareness and help you start to figure out how to release some of your own fears, creating that positive ripple effect that not only increases your confidence but enhances your emotional intelligence, which has been shown as a key indicator for success. So all of these things can create a culture of collaboration and communication where employees feel safe to talk to their boss and to help avoid leadership blind spots. because we all have them, right? You know that saying, the fish rots from the head down. Well, the inverse is true. When you have a leadership team that makes health, well-being, balance a priority, well, it enables your team to do the same. And then you've got a team that's cooking with gas. That's the whole idea, right?
Exactly.
Right. So let me dive in here to the principles of the mind, right? So these are some of the things that you need to understand about your brain, right? Your brain always does the following. Your mind always does what it thinks you want it to do, what it thinks is in your very best interest for your survival. Thank you very much, Amy, right? So you have to tell your mind very clearly what you want it to do. In other words, notice the self-talk that you're having with yourself on a regular basis. And then it's your job to give your mind better directions, better instructions on the daily, right? This is a great way to overcome those pesky little gnats, those negative automatic thoughts. Secondly, your mind responds to two things: the pictures that you make in your head and the words that you say to yourself. So you get to pause and notice, what are the images and the words you're seeing and repeating to yourself on a daily basis? Do you have a bunch of negative automatic thoughts roaming around in your head? And are they lifting you up, or are they bringing you down? Because if you're constantly replaying negative things in your mind, past scenes, past things that have had a bad impact on you, it's having that negative impact on your cells, your physicality. And it's the thing to remember is it's the meaning that you give these memories that creates the joy or the suffering, right? You know the saying, the glass is half full or the glass is half empty, right? Are you looking at it in a positive light or a negative light? Because that has an impact. One of my favorite quotes is, the opposite of love isn't hate, it's indifference. So if something really bad has happened to you, you can learn to let go of the hate, the anger, the bitterness, whatever that might be, and just be indifferent to it, because then it will no longer have a powerful negative impact on your body, right? The third thing, your brain is programmed to move away from pain and towards pleasure. So again, this is Amy. Amy's at work here. She just wants to keep you safe, because in her mind, that scary boss might be a saber-toothed tiger, right? Now, we know we no longer have any saber-toothed tigers, but Amy doesn't get that. So you have to tell your brain that this isn't necessarily a bad thing. You have to choose what you link pleasure and pain to. So the only way to avoid pain is by what you're telling yourself about any given thing, task, or event, and using very specific words with yourself to even fool your brain, lie to your brain. I always tell people to confuse your mind to overcome your fears. So you lie to your brain, cheat your fears, and steal back your confidence. So for example, those reports that you really hate to do, if you keep telling yourself, oh, I hate to do those reports, it becomes painful. But if he's like, oh, I love doing these reports, it's so exciting, what you're literally doing is you're creating a cascade of happy chemicals in your mind, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, to create a feel-good response in your body. So even if you don't necessarily believe it, keep telling yourself that, and then your hormones will kick in, and then eventually you actually like, oh, okay, this really isn't that bad. So it's a way of fooling your brain into doing things that are less than pleasurable, right?
Really interesting. Hey, we've got a question for you. Daniel has written, doesn't a person have to understand the duality of self before they can tell their brain what to do, think, or say?
That's a great question, Daniel. Yes, well, it starts with noticing, right? It creates more of that mindfulness, that inner awareness of, knowing what I'm feeling in this moment. Why am I feeling angry, or why am I feeling agitated? And is it something out there, or is it something in me actually that's creating the agitation? And sit with the feeling. because we tend to operate from the head up, but we have this amazing body that can give us all sorts of information about what's working and what's not working. Stress in your body is your body's way of saying, hello, excuse me, there's something wrong here, I need your attention, right? And so by taking time to breathe into and really noticing, what am I actually feeling in my body right now that's causing this pain or tension or stress, then you can start to unravel it more. And it's a process, Daniel. Now, I won't kid you. This work isn't necessarily for the faint of heart, but it's for those who really want to live life in a purposeful way, in a joyful way, and an expansive way, right? Let's see. And then our last principle of the mind is your brain likes what's familiar. In other words, it likes repetition. So the more you tell yourself something, the more true it becomes for you. So what are you telling yourself? If you're telling yourself, oh, I'm not very good at this, I can't do this, I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough, whatever, then you will start to believe that. And if you want to shift that, well then, I am enough, I am smart enough, I am capable, I am confident. And the more you tell yourself something, the more connected those synaptic connections in your brain become, right? So your brain will always go to the familiar track. So if you have a familiar track that says, I'm not good enough, when you get stressed, it will go there. So your job is to rewire that. So you notice the limiting belief and you decide, okay, I'm going to reprogram my brain. I am enough. I am capable. I am talented. Rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. And you keep telling yourself that over and over and over again. And it literally burns new neural pathways in your brain, which then becomes the new familiar, the new go-to as you rewire your brain for more positive experiences and success. Does that make sense?
It makes perfect sense. And how are you finding, can you imagine an HR person who's responsible for leadership development, having a leader that's been sent to their office who's effective in many ways, but perhaps doesn't treat people with respect during high pressure times? Can you imagine them saying, here's what I want you to say to yourself. I am a kind leader. I am a kind leader. I do care about, right? So how are HR folks and leaders using this within the confines of a traditional corporate environment? It's one thing for me to use this personally. It's another thing to bring it to people in your organization.
Absolutely. And that's a great question, Anissa, because again, we don't start there.
Right.
It's about helping folks understand how they tick and how their colleagues tick and what's the impact that their words, their actions, their energy has as a leader, right? I get really into the science of this all the way down to the physics and the energetics of it. And your emotions literally vibrate at different energetic frequencies. So if you have negative emotions, you're angry about something, it can create a really big expanse of energy in 4 to 5 feet all the way around you, and that can impact other people in the room. You all have, I know you've walked into a conference room with a group of people and you can feel the energy of the room, right? We're really excited to be here, or oh gosh, what's coming now, right? You can feel it and sense it. And so your job as a leader is to manage your energy more effectively, to know that your energy has an impact, and then choosing how you want to manage your energy to have the positive impact that you want to create for your team, that engages them, that inspires them, that encourages them versus weighs them down and makes them bad and wrong for the mistakes that have happened. Because every organization has mistakes that are made, but it's how you respond to that versus react to it, the knee-jerk reaction to it, that makes all the difference in the world. And that's the things that we teach people. So we start really big and we bring it down to these little pieces that each person can put to good use on an individual level that has a big impact all the way across their teams.
Love it. As always, we have packed so much into our hour. I want to make sure we're respecting everyone on the call and the time that we asked of them. We literally have 4 minutes, Michele, which means where can we leave folks with for them to take away from our training today, as well as how they might continue their quest for both professional development as well as team development using this?
Sure. Well, the work that I do has a particular precise way of helping folks create new patterns of thought, helping them literally create new synaptic connections and rewiring their brain as part of my unique rapid rewire breakthrough process that I have for individuals. And it's a really powerful 30-day process that I take folks through. And then for teams, I create customized mindfulness programs that includes pieces of everything we've been talking about today, but also about how to stand more effectively in your leadership, how to communicate more effectively with your team, how to engage people on your team so that you don't have the stragglers who are ho-humming and got their arms crossed, the negative Nellies and critical Craigs on your team, right?
Yeah.
So I would welcome any questions or reaching out to Anissa and I about how we might be able to help your team create some of these positive shifts to create really amazing high-performing teams, or even if you're interested in doing some individual work and having a conversation with me. I'd be happy to have a complimentary discovery session with you to see what breakthroughs you might create for yourself and personally and professionally in your career.
I think that's fantastic. I would love to see folks actually take you up on that. If you'll navigate all the way to our final slide where we're talking about our Fast Pass strategy session, one of the things that Turnkey Coaching and Development Solutions does, and I think we do really well, is simply organizational development brainstorming. A lot of folks that are attracted to our webinars that take us up on our Fast Pass strategy session find that at the end of that session, it specifically helps them identify what are the challenges I'm facing in my organization when it comes to either my team's development or my organization's development, and what is the pathway to implementing a program or an initiative. Sometimes it's just a pilot. Sometimes it's something internally that you can do. Sometimes it's a big comprehensive program. But what's the pathway to create organizational change and employee development programs that will stick? And sometimes it just helps having an outside source that can say, well, here's what these 3 organizations have done, and here's what this one organization did, and here's something similar, and oh, that's your budget? Hey, this is what you could do with that, right? And we want to be able to provide that for you. And Michele is will you tell us about the free ebook that you're offering folks? And then we'll make sure that we send out an email to everyone, making sure that they get access to that ebook.
Sure, absolutely. So I love helping people get over their stuff, right? And so I wrote this ebook, Saying No with Grace and Grit. It's really a way of how to say no more effectively, to set clear boundaries, to take care of yourself more effectively so that you can be your best self and be your most productive self in a good way. And so the link there and then we'll send out to you as well. We'll get you a copy of the ebook as well as the guided transformation MP3 recording. And it's about a 20-minute recording that you can listen to if you need to take a break. It will help you quiet your mind and relax and help create some new positive neural pathways in your brain as well. So if you listen to it over time, it will help build up those new beliefs and help you set those boundaries more effectively for yourself.
Love it. And we've got quite a few questions that have come in. I want to say thank you so much for everyone for being here. We're going to take those questions. It's usually about a day before the system will send me those questions, and I'll get with Michele. We'll come up with some answers, and we'll make sure that everyone gets the answers to these questions that are coming in. At least those of that we're on that we know what to do with.
Yes, absolutely.
Michele, really interesting and fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you being here, and I know some folks are going to give you a call to, all they have to do is get in touch with Turnkey. We'll put you in touch with Michele and take advantage of her complimentary laser session.
Yes, absolutely. It'd be my honor and, my pleasure to have a conversation with anybody who's interested, and always happy to help out. So thank you, Anissa. This was so much fun. Always fun to share information and be on a call with you and spread the good news of how we can all be our best selves, right?
I love it. Thank you so much, Michele. Have a great afternoon. Everyone, thank you, and have a great afternoon. We'll be in touch.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.